Good evening, Oswego, and welcome to The Real Deal, your source for spoiler-free movie reviews. I'm Brandon Macy.
I'm Connor Brennan.
And I'm Nathaniel Ahart.
Connor is back from the dead to join us for tonight's program. Or is this man an imposter?
Oh, you're going this route, huh?
Tonight we are critiquing Jordan Peele's newest horror flick, Us, a story about a family who must escape from their doppelgangers. After the release of Get Out, audiences have been hungry for more Jordan Peele films, so we are going to talk a lot about this film after we take a quick look at the trailer.
There's a family in our driveway.
It's probably the neighbors. But y'all scared of a family? Hi, can I help you?
Zora, put your shoes on.
If you want to get crazy, we can get crazy.
I'm not quite sure how I would react if I came face to face with myself. Would it destroy the space-time continuum?
Well,
I don't know.
I feel like the way this film portrays it may be a little different. Not to get into spoilers, but
I think you were thinking Back to the Future too there.
I'm glad somebody got my reference. Gentlemen, what did you think of Us?
Well, I thought it was a solid horror film. I don't think it's going to be a major classic in years to come, but it managed to scare me. I was relieved that this is another edition in the, line of original horror films we've been getting for the past few years. The Babadook, Hereditary, Cabin in the Woods, and now this. So I'd say we've been having a pretty good decade for horror films so far.
Yeah,
anyway.
Especially the past few years, and I mean, I wouldn't say this film is like as good as Hereditary. I mean, it's a completely different movie.
Right.
But I was really heavily anticipating this movie. I mean, Get Out was one of my favorite movies from 2017, one of my favorite horror films of all time, per se.
Oh yeah, I forgot Get Out. Yeah.
Yeah, and so, to say I was excited for this is a little bit of an understatement. And I was a little disappointed considering the quality of Get Out. Because I don't think this film is structurally or thematically as strong, but it is a really ambitious horror film that I think has some really interesting ideas.
Well, I thought Get Out was good. It was all right.
Oh,
I didn't think
just
it was all right
man?
great.
Just all right.
Oh.
Eh?
Yeah, here's the thing.
It was awesome.
That
I
hurts
left
me.
I thought it was kind of underwhelming considering the amount of hype that it's been getting. We saw Get Out, right? And that was awesome. And then you leave us with Us, and it was like, I don't know. I just wasn't really feeling it. It didn't really feel like the same kind of horror films that I'm used to seeing. And, I'm a big fan of The Shining. We've talked about The Shining before when we critiqued Halloween. And, Halloween was scary too. And I thought Us was scary as well. But, it didn't feel well. There were a lot of problems I had with this story. But kind of mostly within the script, not so much within the production design or their performances. It was really the way the story was laid out and a lot of the plot twists that occurred in there. Well, I didn't think they all connected very well.
Wait, so you
give me
aren't
an
saying,
example.
Oh, sorry. Can I ask one question?
Yeah.
So you aren't saying Get Out was okay?
I'm saying Get Out was fine. It was good.
Well,
it was better than Us.
Well,
okay.
Well, I mean,
Fair
we
enough.
both think Get Out is excellent.
Yes.
So.
The screenplay, man, so good.
Well, there are a lot of elements of this film that need to be incorporated to be an effective horror film. The lighting, the suspense, the atmosphere, and all that comes with a good production design. So let's talk about that right now. This is our review of the production design of this film. So one thing that really stood out in this film was the use of masks, especially on the little boy character and his doppelganger. What do you think the mask is supposed to mean?
I'm not too sure. I didn't think about that, but too much honestly. But I noticed that the real boy's mask is like a plastic a version of a horror film character face.
It looked like a Chewbacca mask, to be honest.
A little bit. The Chewbacca mom.
Yeah. From that photo, I'm not sure though. Like maybe more like a green alien or something. And the doppelganger's mask, it's a cloth mask. Like I don't know if it's supposed to be anything. Just I don't know. What stood out to me more was
it kind of looks like you know, the doppelganger's mask kind of looks like something you would make yourself, like a sock mask that you cut eyes out of, cut a mouth out of, and then just put it on. So let's talk about that. Why do you think he did that? Why not have a replica mask of the little boys?
I just think, well, I mean, clearly the costuming for all the doppelgangers is different from the actual people. I just think that was in there because he had a mask. And of course, there's a reasoning for the doppelganger to have a mask more than a kid, but I just figured that's why it was there, because the kid had one. So I was like, oh, let's throw it on.
Yeah, and honestly, we have to bring up the red suits, which honestly looked like prison outfits to me. But I thought maybe that was supposed to tie into a theme of, say, America trying to leave its past behind, like how we throw a lot of people into prison just to say that we solved a problem. Have you watched the documentary 13th?
Yes.
13th?
That's a great documentary.
It details how the presidential administrations over the decades have persecuted minorities and using poor excuses like drug wars and such, and violent crime, and now our prisons become more filled with more people every year, and it's a crazy epidemic that should be looked into.
So you're detecting a political message within this film.
Yeah.
Well, I think it would be wrong to not think he'd put that in his movie, because Get Out was such a racially charged film, and this isn't really racially as charged. It's just basically about this black family, and they just happen to be black. I feel like there are more themes going on beyond that, and it's more about us as a country and us as a people in general.
Yeah. Let's talk about the natural lighting a little bit. There was a scene with the two boys when they were in the closet. They used a match to use natural lights.
Yeah.
I love natural light.
Yes.
You really gotta take advantage of darkness and shadows in a horror film, and this movie did a good job at doing that. And the use of natural light on the match looked really cool.
Yeah.
I love shots like that.
The film is much more well shot than Get Out. I will say that.
Also, the fun house in the beginning, when the little girl goes into the fun house in the beginning, it's sort of a bluish light, and
kind of like in Moonlight, right?
Yeah, and it feels muted enough, and it's felt, I don't know, it just felt very effective.
All right, we need to take a short break, but when we come back, we are going to talk about the screenplay. When we return, stay tuned.
We believe in patriotism. We believe in our country. For 100 years, veterans have been impacting our nation through the American Legion. Learn more at legion.org/webelieve.
It's back and better than ever. One student can win up to $25 in cash. All on Oswego's favorite game show, Sit to Win! Every Sunday night at 9, only on WTOP 10 TV.
Welcome back to The Real Deal. Tonight we are critiquing Us. This film was written, produced, and directed by Jordan Peele. Now, I'm sure he's capable of directing his own story, but it's all about the script and making the story stick with the crowd. Let's have a good conversation about the screenplay of Us. All right. Here's my biggest problem with this movie. It was basically the story, you know?
All right,
I was enjoying it up until a certain point, until we learned more about the doppelgangers and who they are, how many of them there are.
Yeah.
And then the ending happened. I'm not going to spoil anything. I'm not going to spoil the ending. But the ending kind of left me scratching my head, and it kind of ruined the film for me.
Well, that's not that uncommon in horror films, but I'm sure this was like a creative decision, like say, as opposed to the original Nightmare on Elm Street. You know, it ends with everything apparently being happy, but Freddy comes in for one last scare. Like, that was done because of a disagreement between Wes Craven and producer Robert Shea about a hook for a sequel. So they said, screw it, we'll use all the endings we have in mind. It's kind of weird, but
it works sometimes, but sometimes it also doesn't work.
Yeah.
And you know, we also saw a lot of time jumps and flashbacks in this film, which they work too.
I think they do, yeah.
Yeah,
I like them when they use them for expositional purposes.
Yeah,
we saw that in the beginning.
Yes.
But the problem is they kind of kept jumping back to it and giving more and more unnecessary exposition, which I thought was. I don't know. I don't think it worked all that well. I would have preferred it if they gave us kind of more subtle details in the beginning and then let the audience catch on to more of her story.
Well, I didn't think they were that numerous, the flashbacks. Like,
yeah,
or at least I don't think so.
And this is the thing, because I want to see it one more time. I'm actually thinking about going and seeing it tomorrow. I feel like, looking back on it and remembering what I saw in the film, there are some really subtle details that Peele puts in there that when you know what happens in the end, you're like, okay, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. Yeah. When I walked out of the theater, I didn't know how to feel about the ending, but when I tie that into what I interpret the film as, it makes it a bit more meaningful. But again, I have to see it one more time to really be sure my thoughts on this film.
Yeah, but the way it's all like set up, it begins other than like the opening, which is absolutely brilliant.
It's good.
They have of course, usual setup like family going on vacation, such. You see that in quite a few horror films.
Yeah, you think that's done too much? Families going on vacation?
Well, maybe not if like the performances are distinguishable enough from like the typical character cliches, and of course then it becomes like sort of a mad slasher story partway through with the doppelgangers and a variation on the Jekyll and Hyde formula. Like I've seen a lot of films of a lot of genres, and I've sort of a student of how genres change over time, and I feel like if you make a film of a certain genre and you're able to change it up enough, use the familiar ingredients enough in a creative way, then I think you got something unique on your hands. Like just look at the Westerns and how darker they got over the years, like from Stagecoach to, say, Shane to The Wild Bunch, and finally to Unforgiven, which is probably the darkest the Western has ever gotten.
Yeah, one of the best, too.
Why scissors? This is a slasher film. Why do you think they used scissors as weapons?
I don't know, like maybe again tying into the theme of cutting out the past. Like, and
that could be it.
And it's not that unique a horror weapon, though, like, say, Dial M for Murder with Hitchcock. That was a Hitchcock film. The murderer uses that as a weapon. So,
yeah, I think that's a good point. I like how you talked about Hitchcock, and I love when anyone talks about Hitchcock, really. But those are some interesting points. Yeah, we don't really see scissors a lot in horror films. Actually, I think I prefer to use scissors rather than a knife because a knife is done too much.
Yeah. And also, I do want to say, because I already touched on this, that structurally I think Get Out's a much better film. But there is some really interesting things structurally, and there's they plant stuff and it pays off. So I do respect that kind of screenwriting.
Good. Yeah. When we come back, we're going to talk about the performances of the lovely families centered around this film. Don't go away.
Most of us like to be out in the sun. That's why sunscreen and other safety measures are key to protecting your skin from aging and cancer. The FDA recommends using a sunscreen with an SPF of 15 or higher. Also, look for broad spectrum on the label. That means both harmful ultraviolet A and B rays are blocked. Remember, SPF plus broad spectrum equal healthy fun in the sun. Visit www.fda.gov/sunscreen for more information. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
I'm a lot more confident and a lot more sure of my abilities.
At Oswego is where I really found myself and became the person I am. You work hard and you play hard. I love the environment of SUNY Oswego.
David Richey. I mean, they were. Do you think Bryce Humphrey, a Tommy John survivor, Nathan Eovaldi?
Welcome back to The Real Deal. We're reviewing Jordan Peele's newest film, Us, tonight. Now, a good horror film needs to have actors who can scare and actors who can be scared. Let's talk about this cast in our review of their performances. All right, anybody who's seen Black Panther is going to recognize a couple of faces in this picture. Lupita Nyong'o, I think that's how you pronounce her name. She was the lead in this film. She was the mother. How do you think she did? I really enjoyed her performance.
Oh, she's great. And I mean, I loved her since like 12 Years a Slave. I'm glad that she's getting all these roles. And I know a lot of people are saying already, oh, Oscar campaign, you know, like it's like Toni Collette in Hereditary. Now, I wouldn't go that far. I know it's a completely different performance, but I feel like Toni Collette was like on a whole other level in that movie. But Lupita Nyong'o is still fantastic. And the fact that she has to play two like very distinct characters, I really respected what she did with the role.
That's unique. You see, the actors in this film, they're playing as two characters, themselves and their doppelgangers. And that is tough because they essentially have to develop two different personalities.
Yeah, like, you know, people did that in the past. Like, say, Peter Sellers played multiple characters.
And that's one of the most iconic performances of all time, right?
Alec Guinness, I think, played multiple characters. And
I don't know what film that is.
Yeah, well,
Alec Guinness is only known for Star Wars.
Bridge on the River Kwai.
Yeah, that too.
We also have Winston Duke. He played as the father, and he did a really good job too. He almost kind of looks like Jordan Peele in a sense.
Yeah, you know, when I first saw the trailer, I thought it was Jordan Peele. And then I was like, oh, Winston Duke, oh, okay.
Did he do that on purpose? Do you think Jordan Peele did that on purpose?
No.
He wanted to cast someone who looked just like
M'Baku, Winston Duke. Winston Duke, I thought he was very good. Like, you know, he was funny and just his doppelganger, like, a great contrast. Like, he only like grunted and such. Like, contrast to how much like the real dad, talked. It was a little eerie. And of course, you think back to, you know, slasher film villains who are usually silent, like Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees.
But he didn't go, ugh.
Well, no.
It almost kind of dehumanizes them in a little way. The doppelgangers, you see them, they're dressed in these red jumpsuits. They are completely different from their characters, from their personality to even the way they talk, and even sometimes the way they look.
Yep, also going back to how they look like prison suits. Prison's said to be dehumanizing, so...
Yeah. And
there you go.
The daughter, though, like, the faces she was doing, like, it was so creepy, you know, and she did a great job. I think the whole family, like, was great, you know.
Yeah.
Also, Elizabeth Moss has one really good scene. It was like, whoa. It kind of blew me back in my seat a little bit, you know, in terms of, like, facial expression and stuff.
Yeah, but Lupita Nyong'o was very good, I felt, as the, you know, traumatized member of the family, and kids were also pretty good. Like, they weren't annoying like quite a few horror film kids are. Like, say, everyone always cites The Little Boy and The Babadook, but having seen quite a few horror films from the past, yeah, there's been a fair share of annoying horror film kids.
I want to talk about, you brought up a point about this being a prison and how it kind of targets the black community. There were many people in these red jumpsuits, not just the doppelgangers of the family, but we saw other people in jumpsuits as well. We saw this in a white family, and just there were hundreds of them.
Yeah, that's why I don't think this film is really geared toward race, and it's more of like a general kind of critique on the U.S.
Yeah, like, yeah, I felt that too, but I don't know if it's like environmental or just more general, and you know, humans are bad and all that, but just thinking, because Get Out, yeah, Us I don't think was as much about racism as Get Out.
No.
Now Get Out, one of the scary things about that was the Allison Williams family was very subtle about the racism they felt.
I would have voted for Obama third term.
Yeah, that's that's an excuse that some racist folks would make.
On the other side of the break, we are going to give our final thoughts and IMDb ratings. Inside the Void. You're watching The Real Deal. We'll be right back.
Pretty good today, pretty good.
You know, yeah, I thought he called a pretty fair game.
Come on, man, that was a weak call. Yeah, man, that ref is totally soft.
All right, crew, let's get started. All right.
Don't ignore the law. You must call 811 at least 2 to 3 days before any digging project so you can avoid hitting our essential buried utilities. For digging projects big or small, make the call to 811.
Welcome back to The Real Deal. We're critiquing Us this evening. Gentlemen, we had a pretty good discussion today. So do you have any final thoughts to give on Us?
I'll reiterate my point that I'm happy that this was an original horror film that tried to have something to say. I mean, I don't know, the message, we've seen that in other genre films before, like About America and such, but felt there were, of course, original scares and original concept that was a good variation of the Jekyll and Hyde formula, and I think it did its job, its basic job.
I think Jordan Peele's here to stay. I really do. I mean, I am disappointed by this movie a little bit, but I went in with extremely high expectation. So, you can't expect everything to be as good as, another film of his.
I do like Jordan Peele. I think he's a great filmmaker. I think he's a great comedian as well. I definitely do want to see more of his work.
Yeah, definitely.
I do like that he does movies that are on the topic of race and racism. I think I saw an article on Facebook saying that he doesn't want to cast any white leads because he's seen that before.
Well,
yeah, I guess that makes sense.
Well, I mean, let's face it. For so many decades of Hollywood history, there's been so much of that. Well, white male leads, basically.
Kind of wants to make more people feel more included, more inclusive to people of all races and cultures.
That's a wonderful sentiment.
All right, well, I think the time has come. It's time to give our reviews and IMDb ratings. Nathaniel, will you please step into the void?
While a little bit of a letdown compared to the juggernaut that was Get Out, Us shows that Jordan Peele is here to stay and that ambitious and thought-provoking horror films are up his alley. I give Us 8 out of 10 stars.
Us, while not being completely clear in its message, still manages to solidly provide original scares and presents an eerie variation of the Jekyll and Hyde formula. Peele's direction is efficient, and the actors make the characters feel different from the typical horror film family. 8 out of 10 stars.
Us, as a film, I went into feeling pretty hyped about and walked out of feeling pretty underwhelmed. There were a lot of aspects to the story that didn't make a whole lot of sense while leaving a lot of questions unanswered. Maybe this is what Jordan Peele intended, but I just wasn't feeling it. However, I will give credit where credit is due. Lupita Nyong'o gave a fantastic performance, and I was very pleased with the way the film looked and felt. I give Us 5 out of 10 stars. All right, well, that's our show. Thank you so much for joining us this evening. Make sure you tune in next Wednesday for our review of Dumbo.
Yeah, live-action remake.
Are you looking forward to seeing Dumbo, boys?
A little bit.
Well, interested to see how it goes.
I don't think it's going to be great, but I'm kind of excited to be just like, yeah, I saw it.
Well, we'll find out next week. Make sure you follow the show on Twitter at @TheRealDealWTOP to stay caught up on all of our shenanigans. And we will see you next Wednesday. Have a good night.
You don't have to wear a uniform for service or sacrifice. Every day, ordinary Americans perform extraordinary acts of courage and selfless service. Please join us in recognizing citizen heroes who have made a difference in the lives of others through their acts of courage and selfless service in communities across America. Nominate a citizen hero today at themedalofhonor.com.
Are you thinking about buying medicine online? A search for online pharmacies yields more than 20 million results. But which ones can you trust? Medicines bought from unlicensed online pharmacies can be dangerous. You may get a fake drug, your condition may get worse, or you may experience a bad reaction. Don't put your health at risk. To learn how to find an online pharmacy that's safe and legal, visit fda.gov/BeSafeRx. A message from the U.S. Food and Drug Administration.
Here at WTOP, we pride ourselves on delivering you all the news you need to know from the day's events.
Whether it's happened on Capitol Hill or right here in Oswego,
we make sure you know all about it. We keep you up to date on all your favorite
Oswego and professional sports.
And our Storm Team 10 meteorologist will make sure that you know exactly what weather you're up against when you start your day.
Every Monday through Thursday night, make sure to tune in to Channel 10.2, because at WTOP, we don't just tell you the news.
We are the news.